I just wanted to say big thank you for your support who come to Saturday night and saw what happened that night. But it is what it is. It's a life. Life, it's not canceled. Our goal in the future. And God bless all people around the world.
Welcome back to another episode of Fighting Words. I'm your host, Chris Maxwell, joined as always by senior combat writer Andreas Hale and senior combat editor Tom Gray. Gentlemen, we're coming off another great weekend of boxing. 2 and still undisputed champions remain, with Chantel Cameron and Devin Haney winning both of their fights to retain their belts and their titles. But one of those fights was a little bit more highly contested than the other as far as who the actual winner was. But before we get into that fight, let's talk about Katie Taylor versus Chantel Cameron for the undisputed super lightweight championship. Katie Taylor was favored to win that as far as performing in front of a home crowd, thinking, even we said on the show last week, that it was going to come down to a decision, but it would ultimately probably be in her favor, just, home court advantage. But we were wrong. And how wrong we were, in a sense that it was such an incredible fight that there really is no debate as to whether or not they got the actual winner right, with Chantel Cameron winning by majority decision to retain those belts. But before we get into the other fight, where it's not so clear cut, I got to know, what's next for Katie Taylor? Not only did she move down from number 2 to number 3 on our Sporting News pound for pound rankings, but now there's rumors that maybe there's a rematch. Should she take the rematch? What is next for Katie Taylor, who has her first loss in her career coming off this fight?
Well, firstly, I think it was an upset in terms of what the odds makers had on, but it was an upset that both Andreas and I could foresee. I think the only surprise was that Chantel got the decision, and I was delighted for boxing because I think it would have been a black eye if Katie had got that decision. In terms of what's next, I don't know what Andreas thinks, but from looking at it, I think that Katie will have just as hard a time overcoming Chantel in a rematch as she did this time around. I think the size, the style, the quality, the freshness, everything right now is in Chantel's favour. And I think the warrior heart that Katie has will push her towards a second fight against Chantel Cameron. She'll not be able to sleep properly at night probably for a couple of weeks after that. And I can see when she gets herself together, I think she's going to go after the rematch. Is it advised that she does that? I don't think so. I think Chantel's got a number.
Chantel Cameron is Katie Taylor's Dmitry Bivol. Book it. Chantel is bigger, stronger, better technique than anybody that Katie Taylor's had to deal with. Katie Taylor is Canelo in her quest for greatness, where Tom is absolutely right. She's not going to be able to sleep at night. But this is the wrong fight to take. Because no matter what happens, unless Chantel just have a terrible night, Chantel's going to beat you. Probably worse the second time around. This is where the quest for greatness catches up to you. Because Canelo wants to do the same thing with Dmitry Bivol, and I think me and Tom agree. Don't take that fight. Katie, with Chantel Cameron, don't take that fight. Fight Amanda Serrano, and then figure it out. But her heart's going to be in this place where she cannot accept this defeat, and she's going to try to do it again, and she may lose again. But that's what happens when you try to be great. You dare to be great. Sometimes you fall short, and she might fall short twice.
So we all agree that Chantel Cameron put on a stellar performance against Katie Taylor. And overall, it was just a great fight to watch. Absolutely awesome, action-packed boxing match. And then there was the Devin Haney, Vasily Lomachenko fight. Now, not saying that wasn't a great fight, but there's a little bit more debate there as to whether or not Devin Haney did come out the clear winner. He did win by unanimous decision to retain those belts in the lightweight division, but the majority of the boxing world does not agree with that decision. So I'm just going to flat out ask, was this a robbery?
Well, numerically, if you look at the numerics and you break it all down and look at the 10-point must system and the way that it works, then robbery is too strong a word. The reason this is coming across as a robbery is because if you look at polls in terms of who won the fight, you're looking at 80-20 Lomachenko. I've seen 90-10 Lomachenko. So let's say you average that out to 85-15. That is why it's coming across as a robbery. I mean, it looks like Christmas came early for Devin Haney. So that's the reason the word robbery has been used. But because the 10-point must system is flawed, and I'll tell you why I'm explaining it that way. I gave Haney 4 rounds, 3 of which I had as swing rounds. I gave Lomachenko 1 swing round out of the 7 that I gave him. I gave him 6 clear. So if anyone who thinks they know boxing can sit down with me and explain how you can score 7 rounds of that fight to Devin Haney, I'll be able to tell you that you're wrong. And you're just getting it wrong. But because a swing round is still scored 10-9, if you go one way or the other, it just numerically you're able to pivot it all, straighten it all out, and make Devin Haney a winner. But to me, he lost the fight.
I'm going to just say it flat out. No, this was not a robbery. And I'm going to keep it really simple. Most people that watch boxing don't sit there with a pad and pen and score rounds individually. They just don't. What they do is take what they remember the most, which was Lomachenko's offense that came in spurts, which was very crisp and clean punching. And they say, oh, well, he won the fight. It doesn't work like that. You got to score rounds by the round. I scored the fight 115-113 for Lomachenko. I thought there were a lot of swing rounds that could have gone either way. That, my friends, is not a robbery. A robbery is when Timothy Bradley beats Manny Pacquiao. That's a robbery. A robbery is when Floyd Mayweather dominates Canelo Alvarez and we get a draw on the scorecards. A robbery is basically when everybody knows that one fighter has won so many rounds that weren't even close and they're scored the other way. This fight was Devin Haney being steady with his offense against Lomachenko, who was cleaner with his punches, and a lot of very, very close rounds that could have gone either way. If the fight is scored 7-5 for one fighter, it's not a robbery, guys. It's just a close decision that you didn't like. It's a very difficult job to be a judge with the 10-point must system and judging rounds round by round, but it's not a robbery, guys. It's just you didn't like the decision. So what?
Andreas, do you know, right? You obviously know that there were people that did score it round by round because you were in Las Vegas. How many of them did you meet that had that fight for Haney?
About four. I know Coppinger had it for Haney. I think 3 people had it a draw. But yeah, a vast majority had it 1 round for Lomachenko. I didn't see anything wider than 115-113 Lomachenko. Nothing.
Yeah.
Except for you now.
It was I had wait a minute, I had it 7-4-1, so that is what half a round away from the way you had it. I think what it comes down to is, again, if you've got most of the boxing world, 85% of the boxing world saying that the other man won. The other reason that it doesn't help Haney is because Haney made out as if this fight was going to be easy. He was bigger, he was stronger, he was more athletic, he had more fighting heart, all the things that he said in the lead up to it. And even the bigger and stronger part, there was times during that fight where Lomachenko was throwing Haney around like a mannequin, right? After all the stuff about being stronger, and the fight turned out to be an absolute nightmare for him. There wasn't any major highlight reel moments for Haney. You said it yourself. Lomachenko landed the cleaner, better shots throughout. There was only one man hurt in the fight, and that wasn't Lomachenko, that was Haney. I just think you need to really take advantage. You need to put your nose right out of joint on that 10-point must system to give Haney any more than 6 and probably any more than 5, realistically. There's no way he won 7 rounds of the fight. I'd argue the toss with anyone.
I don't know. It's difficult, man. I mean, judges don't have access to the CompuBox numbers, right? So I hate when people go on Twitter and throw up CompuBox like, this man won. You could have scored all your punches in 1 round, right? Like that doesn't matter. But the thing is, I think there were more than enough close rounds that you could say if you wanted to give it to Devin based on the body work, you can figure out a way to give it. I just don't think it was a robbery. I personally had Lomachenko winning, but if you flip 2 of my scorecards around that I said in our live blog that these are close rounds, then you might have the fight for Haney. I don't think the fight was...
One question for you, big man, right? Did Haney prove that he was a better man than Lomachenko?
No.
Yes or no?
I don't think either fighter proved that they were better.
Okay, so Tom, you just took my next question because we cleared that it wasn't a robbery. That's what you guys believe. It was not a robbery. But we even said last week that it's not like Lomachenko is some nobody coming in for Devin just to get another fight on his resume. He's a former champion himself. We said last week he was coming into this fight potentially underrated and people weren't giving him enough credit. So the fact that he put on such a good show against Devin Haney should not come as a surprise. But to repeat the question that you just asked Andreas, did Devin Haney do enough to convince you that he is clearly deserving of the titles of undisputed champion of that division? Or is it closer than we in the boxing community think?
Not really. Firstly, it's double-edged in terms of the robbery word. The robbery word, if you use the 10-point must, no, because the 10-point must is flawed. But when 85% of the boxing world think the other guy won, that's where the robbery part is coming in. In terms of Lomachenko, does Haney deserve to still be undisputed champion? In my opinion, no. In Andreas' opinion, no. In 85% of the boxing public's view, no. So no, he doesn't look like he should be undisputed champion at this point, because the vast majority of people believe he lost his last fight. The result of that fight will hang over him the same way Lewis Walcott won, hung over Joe Lewis, the way Leonard Hearns 2 hung over Leonard, the way Ali Norton 3 hung over Ali. It's going to be a controversial decision that went in his favour. He lucked out. It was Christmas come early. So that essentially is the way this will always be viewed. Andreas wrote a fabulous reaction piece to it. The only issue I had with it was Haney had said something like, what more do I have to prove? Well, you have to prove you can beat Lomachenko because you didn't. And that sounds harsh, but that is ultimately the question. I mean, it doesn't matter. He was in there. He was competitive. Most people thought he lost.
Yeah, look, did he do enough to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt? Absolutely not. This was a very close fight. I think we both said that last week was going to be a close fight. I don't care what Haney says. As a fighter, you're supposed to go in saying that you're going to beat the hell out of your opponent. And he didn't do it. He didn't dominate that fight like he said he would. But I don't even think he knew he was going to dominate the fight. He knew it was going to be close. Now, here's the thing. All those fights that you just mentioned, Tom, that hangover fighters had, Floyd Mayweather fought Jose Luis Castillo in that first fight. And a lot of people had Castillo winning that fight. And it still hangs over Floyd's head to this day. But what Floyd did is he fought Castillo again and dominated him in the rematch. Now, Devin Haney and Bill Haney have both said there's going to be no rematch, but I think they're going to have to reconsider their position. Because if you want to be number one beyond a shadow of a doubt in the lightweight division, you need to beat the man. Much credit to Devin Haney. He's only 24 years old. He fought a Lomachenko who was a 3-division champion, who was a pound-for-pound great, short shot Hall of Famer. Hanging in there, you get a lot of credit for that. But you have to win definitively, and he did not do that. So it would behoove Devin Haney to say, you know what? I'll take that rematch because I need to prove myself, because these titles don't mean nothing if people are going to doubt my greatness.
Couldn't have said it better.
And obviously, Loma's team wasn't happy with the outcome either, and they are appealing it. So is that going to do any good? Or to Andreas's point, do we just need a rematch, or else this is just going to be an asterisk on Devin Haney's career?
No, I mean, there's been decisions worse than that, Carissa, where you can go to various commissions and you can appeal all day, but it's not going to happen. The best route is to go to the governing bodies and try and basically force Haney to come into a rematch. But Andreas has already touched on it. His future is at 140. He could automatically just walk because he doesn't need to hold these belts if he wants to move up in weight. I just think his pride should come in here. He knows deep down in his heart, he was the unhappiest winner of a mega fight I've ever seen. Deep down in his heart, I think he should look to give Lomachenko a rematch.
Yeah, the appeal means absolutely nothing. Look, we've seen far, 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 far worse decisions than this one, and they've been appealed and nothing has come out of that. It's just posturing. It means absolutely nothing. If you're Devin Haney, I think you're riding the high of winning that fight. And you're going to immediately say, no, he doesn't deserve a rematch. But I guarantee you, when him and his father, Bill Haney, sit down and watch that tape over, and they listen to people, and they go on social media, and they talk to boxing pundits, and they talk to their friends, they may feel a way that, you know what, it wasn't clear. And if I'm that confident in my ability, I could do it again. He said he felt great at 135 pounds. He got a nutritionist. He looked strong heading into the fight. Granted, Lomachenko looked like he outclassed him in a lot of those rounds, and he outmuscled him in some cases. But if you want to prove yourself and you watch that tape back and you can still say with a straight face that you dominated that fight, then you got a problem. But you know better than that. Take the rematch. Let's do it again. The fans want to see it. The rematch will be bigger than the first one. And there's a lot of money out there for you in that rematch. Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor, they'll all be there. Vasily Lomachenko may not.
Yeah. Not only did they not dominate, it didn't win, period. That's the issue.
Tom, you've mentioned the scoring multiple times throughout this conversation. So to ask both of you, what can be done to help scoring in boxing to prevent this from continuing to happen?
Right. I mean, I've had conversations with Chris Lloyd, who works for DAZN, because it's a point of contention for both of us. There's not enough flexibility in the 10-point must. You know, when a round is competitive and you go one way or the other, it's 10-9 to whoever wins. So rounds that I was edging out to say Devin Haney, because I preferred the bodywork that Andreas referred to, are scored the same way as you would score round 11 for Lomachenko, who gave Devin Haney a beating for most of that round, had him woozy and a bit wobbly for about 40 seconds of that fight. You're still scoring at 10-9. If you can open up to where a round is clearly won, if you can make that the 10-8 and then start knocking points off further for knockdowns, I think you'll get a more accurate reflection of the fight as a whole. Ultimately, that's the problem. The 10-point must system is seriously flawed, and it would also put judges in a position where they would be harder pressed to justify a scorecard if you can clearly call the rounds as you see them. Was it a close round for fighter A, or was it a wide round for fighter A, or for fighter A, and the same for fighter B? That would basically create better argument, or it would be more difficult for judges to justify their positions when they hand in absolute drivel, which they do regularly. Dave Moretti had that fight, scored 8-4 to Devin Haney. That's a sacking offence. And I like Dave Moretti. I've got a lot of respect for him, but he's all over the place. That score is impossible, literally impossible. And Dave Moretti gave Bivol 7 rounds against Canelo when everyone had that fight much, much, much wider. But he's not been held accountable for it and probably won't be again. Make the 10-point must system a bit more flexible and you'll not have as many travesties, is my advice.
Yeah, Tom,
Andreas, before you answer that, didn't Dave Moretti have a ridiculous score for the Gervonta Davis-Ryan Garcia fight as well that caused a lot of drama?
A 10-10 round when Tank knocked down Ryan Garcia. How the hell did you come up with that? But here's the problem. We're not allowed to ask Dave Moretti anything. We can't talk to the judges. We can't talk to the referees. So that as media, it hampers us because we can't figure out what's going on in their head. So how can we fix something when we don't know what they're thinking? But to Tom's point, the 10-point must system is flawed because there are 10 points, and most of the time, you only use 10 and 9. That's a problem. It's like having a report card and only giving A's and B's when you can give C's, D's, and F's, and you're not allowed to use those unless something drastic happens to qualify that. We have to retrain people's minds to grade fights differently because there are some rounds in there that could have been a 10-8 without a knockdown. And it shouldn't have to take a knockdown or a severe beating just to get a 10-8. If there's a severe beating in the round, it could be a 10-5 round because you got your ass kicked in that entire round. But we don't judge it like that. We have to retrain everybody on this must system, this 10-point must system. But the problem is we're not going to do it. So we're stuck with this craptastic system and we're going to have to deal with it for the near future.
And to be honest, Carissa, they're not going to change it because the way it is, it can be twisted, it can be manipulated, and that suits people. That suits people. You know, if you make it the way Andreas and I are saying, then it would be far more difficult to mess around. But keep it the way it is, and you can twist things to your favour, and that's why it will stay the way it is, which is tragic.
Well, I'm excited to, start my new job as your campaign advisor for commissioner of the boxing, governing bodies, so we can get that changed and avoid this in the future. I think that I don't think that this was what we were expecting to talk about. I definitely think that the debate for the decision was going to come out of the Katie Taylor-Chantel Cameron fight. So it is kind of surprising that we are discussing this with Devin Haney, Vasily Lomachenko, and now we have to see what happens next. Who will Devin fight next? Who will Katie Taylor fight next? What will be their next move to continue to try to prove themselves? Not that Katie Taylor has anything to prove. She put on a hell of a show. But now we look forward to the #1 pound-for-pound women's boxer in the world, Clarissa Shields, and her fight that is coming up against Hannah Gabriels. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about that next week. In the meantime, I'm Chris Maxwell for Fighting Words, Andreas Hale and Tom Gray, and we will see you next week.